a group of friends of mine who included Mukhya, who's a temple president here in Alachua. There's about 7 of us who kind of joined together. We were searching, you know, at that time in the 60s, we were all kind of searching for the truth, going to different yoga groups and, you know, studying, fasting, doing all of that, you know, confused, but, you know, really searching. So we met, actually Mukhya and her husband were the ones that saw Prabhupada first, and they told us about it. So I started reading Bhagavad Gita, and all of us, like 8 of us, all ended up joining the temple together. So that was in Detroit, and I stayed there for, you know, for some weeks, and then went to Miami, and I joined the temple there. Abhiram was a temple president, and I started going on Sankirtan almost immediately. You know, I was really loved the Sankirtan devotees, so I would just go out every day to the Miami airport, and I really loved it.
Did you get arrested?
Oh yeah, so many times. You can't imagine. One of my stories about getting arrested, I got arrested in Alabama. Actually, we were on traveling Sankirtan, and we were following Prabhupada up the East Coast. So I saw him in New Vrindavan, I saw him in Philadelphia where I got initiated, saw him in Washington, saw him in New York, saw him in Detroit, saw Srila Prabhupada in Chicago. And then we came back down, it was in Alabama, and we were distributing back to Godheads with Krishna on the front. So the police came up and just told us, get into the police car. It was like me and a Bhaktin and Tamahar, you know, who's like a GBC member. And so we're in jail. And by the time the other member who went to get lunch for us came back, it was too late to bail us out. So we had to spend the night in jail. And that, you know, I felt kind of like, okay, Krishna's got a plan here, but the Bhaktin was kind of like freaking out. The next morning, they put us in a white room and just had little windows in it. And then she was really freaking out. She was crying, but then they let us out. They brought us in front of the judge, and the judge asked us, you know, well, what are you doing? Because, you know, we're all like in our 20s, we're young, we're enthusiastic. And so I explained to him that I used to be a teacher, but I felt like there was more to teach in the world, you know, than what I was teaching. We were teaching people how to love God, you know, how to reach the highest goal. So each one of us got up and spoke to the judge about, you know, why we were devotees and what we were doing. And so he was pretty amazed. And he said, you know, I'm really sorry that you were arrested. He said, I'm going to give you my card. We're going to release you. And if you ever have any trouble along the way, just let us know. So like he let us out, and we were traveling in a mobile home. Tamahar's wife, Mantrini, and her daughters. So because we couldn't eat for all of that time, she had prepared a big feast for us. So we came in, we sat down, we started taking the feast, and there was like a knock at the door. And we opened the door, and it was the judge and the bailiff. So we invited them in, and he sat down and had prasadam with us. And he gave $10, which is probably like $100 now back then, and took a Bhagavad Gita. And so you never really know how things are going to turn out, you know, so that was pretty good. That was the only time I had to spend the night in jail. But it was funny because when I moved, you know, I have a degree in education, but when I became a devotee in Detroit, this is what they told me. They said, well, because you have a degree in teaching and you taught karma kids, you're not qualified to teach the devotee children. So I was like, okay. So I just did Sankirtan, you know. But then when I moved to Alachua, you know, they were like, oh my God, you have a degree in teaching, you know, please, you know, join our school. So that's what I did. So I did Sankirtan for like the first, I'd say 15 years of being a devotee. I did it in Miami. And the thing is, before I could get my teaching license, you know, you have to go through some process, and they had a problem with my application. They were like, why were you arrested like so many times? So then I told them, well, because, it was Hare Krishna and I would be giving out books, and, that's why I got arrested. And then they were like, oh, okay, that's all it was, It was kind of funny because they were like bewildered, like, how could you get arrested this many times? But it was that's just the way it was, and we just got used to it. So many things, like once, in Miami, there was a line that we couldn't cross, right? If we crossed the line, then somebody saw us, one of the officials, they would send us home. So on one particular time, when I was teaching, I saw this man come up to the door of my classroom. Actually, it was a man. And so I went to the door. I said, "Can I help you?" He said, "I'm looking for Mahatma." I said, "Well, she's not here. She's in Mexico." And he goes, "I remember you." He said, "Your name is Sandra Elsie Sukhada." He was one of the people that kicked me out of the airport all the time for going over the line, And he became a friend of the devotees, over time. So it's just interesting how the process of bhakti works, and how people, even inimical, if they can be touched by the devotees. So then I taught in Alachua. I taught 3 years before I was a devotee. In Alachua, I taught 27 years. I helped to open the Vana, the Bhaktivedanta Academy, where I taught for 10 years. And then I helped open up the charter school. I helped to write the charter for the school based on values and life skills and multicultural. So, and that charter school is still going. It's always been an A school. So I taught there for 14 years. Then I went back to the Gurukula and taught there for a few years. And now I'm very involved in devotee care, trying to establish like a very maintainable system for caring for devotees who are hospitalized, homebound, ill in different ways. So luckily, Krishna always keeps me busy.
Wonderful, very impressive, very impressive, very, very inspiring, beautiful.
A lot of mercy from Krishna, that's all it is. Okay, so I see you sing Jai Radha Madhava and then go ahead with the verse.
Yeah, we can do briefly Jai Radha Madhava in that verse.
Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Gopi Chandra Vallabha Shiva Virari, Yashanandana Virjanavandana, Yashanandana Virjanavandana, Yamuna Tira Vanatari, Yamuna Tira Vanatari, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. So today we're reading from first canto, chapter 1, text 68. So I'll just read the Sanskrit. You can read along with me if you like. We'll do the word for word together, and then I'll read the translation and the purport. I will. Atmanamiya sanjatam janam prad vishnunahatam mahasuram kalanemim yadubi savyarud yasha. Atmanam, personally, iha, in this world, sanjatam, born again, janan, understanding well, prak, previously, before this birth, Vishnuna, by Lord Vishnu, hatam, was killed, maha asuram, a great demon, kalanemim, by the name Kalanemi, Yadubi, with the members of the Yadu dynasty, sa, he, Kamsa, vyarudyata, acted inimically. Translation by Hridayananda Maharaj, I believe. In his previous birth, Kamsa had been a great demon named Kalanemi and had been killed by Vishnu. Upon hearing this information from Narada, Kamsa became envious of everyone connected with the Yadu dynasty. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. And the purport is, persons who are demons, enemies of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, are called asuras. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, the asuras, because of their enmity toward the Supreme Personality of Godhead, take birth after birth in asura families and therefore glide down to the darkest hellish region. So Kalanemi explains in his last life, well, in his life, he had six children. His 6 children, they stood for pride and ignorance, envy, illusion. And these children of Kalanemi, their grandfather was Hiranyakashipu. So they kind of separated themselves from Hiranyakashipu, and they began to worship Lord Brahma because they wanted a certain benediction that they couldn't be killed by practically anybody. So they pretty much separated themselves and worshiped Lord Brahma, and they got the benediction, of having, pretty much a long and unprotected life. But when Hiranyakashipu heard about it, he was very angry, and he withdrew his affection for them, and he cursed them, in your next life, you're going to be killed by your own fathers. So in the next life, he became Kamsa. And of course, we know that those 6 Garbhas, they took birth from Devaki, and they were killed. So that's kind of the backstory of Kalanemi. But I wanted to also investigate this idea of a demon. Like, what is a demon? What's a demoniac mentality? And really, what does that have to do with, with ourselves? So explains in the 16th chapter in detail both the divine and the demoniac mentality. And the demonic mentality is characterized by pride, by arrogance, by conceit, by anger, by harshness, and by ignorance. So of course, we can see that going on, in today's world. What's happening with Putin, which is most likely a descendant of Putin, with a name like that, and all the distress that's being caused by this person. So the demonic, a demon, he's very absorbed in possessions, in material possessions. And he's also very absorbed in control. It also says, pravitam cha, nivritam cha, navidura asana, that nasocham napi chacharo, nasacham teshu vidyate, that someone who's demoniac, that they don't know what is to be done and what is not to be done. That neither cleanliness or proper behavior or truth is found in them. So that's the situation of a demon. Of course, in this age of Kali Yuga, both the divine and demonic natures are inside of us. So we have some of those qualities, and we come in contact with that demonic mentality all the time, sometimes inside of us, sometimes with others. So like, for one example is Vrikasura. So Vrikasura, he wanted a benediction. So he's traveling along, and he meets Narada Muni, and he asks Narada Muni, he goes, I want to ask for a benediction, but I want to know, who should I ask for it from? What's the quickest way that I can get it? So Narada Muni, he really likes to stir things up. So he says, Lord Shiva, that he gives benediction. He becomes easily pleased, and he becomes easily displeased. So Vrikasura, he starts to worship Lord Shiva. And he gets more and more intense about his worship. He starts cutting off his flesh and offering pieces of flesh. And it explains that for a devotee performs austerities and sacrifices to Krishna, especially by the Sankirtan Yagna, but he's not so interested that Krishna has to appear before him. But the demons, they really like to see their worshipable person. So Vrikasura, he decides he's going to cut off the head. He cut off his own head. So he bathed himself first, because generally when you sacrifice something, you have to wash the animal and then you sacrifice it. So he bathed himself. He's ready to cut off his own head. Explains that Lord Shiva, out of compassion, he appears. And because Shiva, it says, even like an ordinary man, if someone's going to commit suicide, you try to intervene. Oh, don't do that. What's wrong? I'll help you. So he says, you don't have to do that. What would you like? Because, well, I want the benediction that I can, if I touch somebody's head, then their head will explode. It'll kill them. Lord Shiva's like, that's the thing with demigods. You go through a certain formula, you ask for a certain benediction, and they're obliged to give it. Krishna's not like that, especially with his devotees. If we really want something, but Krishna knows it's not good for us, he won't give that to us. So we have to have that faith in Krishna, that Krishna knows best. Like, we may want to be real wealthy in our mind. We may think, oh wow, if I win the lottery, I do this with it, I do that with it. I'd build temples, and I'd build a new temple for the Bhakti Center. But Krishna may know, if this happens, this devotee will get very distracted, and it'll take him, 29 births to come back to Godhead instead of one. So he won't offer that benediction. But Lord Shiva did give this benediction. And immediately, what did the demon do? He went off to touch Lord Shiva. So it explains that Lord Shiva, he started traveling all over to the 3 planetary systems, trying to catch Lord Shiva. And Lord Shiva finally, he goes to Shweta Dweep, part of Vaikuntha Loka, and sees Narayan. And Narayan, he also very compassionate. He immediately dressed as a brahmachari, and he's got like a deer skin on. He's got his little pot. He's got his trident, and he approaches Vrikasura, and he says, "Oh, what are you doing?" He explains what he's doing. I'm trying to, get Lord Shiva. He goes, you know what? You have such a wonderful body, and you're probably very tired from all your running around. You really should rest your body. I mean, how can you enjoy if you don't have a body? And of course, demons, they love to take good care of their bodies, and they love to hear about how they can improve it. So he says, okay. And then, Lord Narayan says, actually, this Lord Shiva, I don't even know why you believe him, because he's really, he's not very reliable. He lies a lot. He's got bad association. I think that you should touch your own head, and if he's lying, you should just kill him, just do away with Lord Shiva. So Vrikasura, because Lord Narayan's words are so comforting, he does touch his own head, and his head explodes. He's finished. So again, the demonic mentality, here, someone gives him a beautiful benediction. What's the first thing he wants to do? He wants to kill Lord Shiva. We know that, Tadvidi Pratipatina Pariprishna Sevaya, that, you approach a spiritual master humbly. You offer worship to him, you offer him service. So, so much difference between the devotee mentality and the demonic mentality. And we're trying to, really nurture that devotional part of us. I remember once reading an article about this Christian minister, and the title of the article was how a fish changed my driving. And he described how he was driving. His grandson was sitting in the back seat, and they were starting to drive somewhere, and the grandson said, "Grandpa, is he an idiot or is he a moron?" And the grandfather realized that when he gets behind the wheel, he gets very aggressive. What are you doing, you idiot? You moron, get out of my way. What's wrong with you? And I could relate to it, because sometimes when you get in the car and you're driving, all these feelings do come up. So his whole point was
do you say that, Sukhada? Do you say that?
No, I don't say, well, yeah, maybe sometimes I might say that, actually. I might say, you moron, what are you doing? Being on the road is like so dangerous. And people do crazy things, and that's the thing. And you really see, like, the Bhagavad Gita explains that anger, lust, and greed, those are the three gates, leading to hell, that Krota, that Loba, and people really exemplify it. And we read all the time about people completely losing it, and getting out of their car with a gun and shooting somebody who cut them off or something. So at a very primal level, we have to learn how to control those feelings, and what's the best way to be able to control those feelings, because we're so surrounded by demonic energy. Of course, like in Ukraine right now, the devotees are going through this extreme test. I did read that where one devotee was saying, yes, this is very difficult, but we're devotees of Krishna, and we're trying to remember Krishna every moment, so that if they do leave, they're protected. Krishna protects us devotees. Kante Pratijina Hiname Bhakta Pranashiti. Krishna says, my devotee never perishes. That doesn't mean that his material body won't die, but it does mean that Krishna gives us that supreme protection, so that when we do leave our body, just like a cat, when he picks up a mouse, the mouse is terrified, like, oh my God, this is it for me. But when he picks up the kitten's like, oh, my mom, I'm so comforted. So it's really like that for a devotee. When you read the Bhagavatam, like, I love this story about Didichi Muni. And Didichi Muni, when they're churning the ocean of milk, he's asked for his bones. And he first starts out kind of sarcastically, like, why would I give you my bones? This is my body. It's very dear to me. But actually, he readily says, yes, you can take my bones to help churn the ocean of milk. And it describes when he leaves his body, Didichi Muni, he doesn't even know it. It explains that he doesn't realize when he's left his material body and goes on to a spiritual body. So that's the state of, let's say, samadhi that we're really trying to attain. In the demonic metta, there's two things that are prominent. One is to gain possessions, that they just want everything, like you see with Ravana, palace of gold. And it wasn't enough for him to control one area. Ravana actually took control of the entire universe. The demigods were being forced to pay obeisances to Ravana. That was the situation. Very, very dire, and not until Hanuman and, Sugriva and others, they came and they started to destroy Ravana's army. And when Surpanaka, after she got her nose cut off, came and explained to Ravana what was going on, Ravana was surprised, he was surprised that could happen, that had happened. But also he was very intrigued with Mother Sita. Of course, demons are very, very lusty. And I thought it was really interesting, because when I was doing some research about Ravana, it came up that Ravana is actually worshipped in some places in India. They see him as a very significant personality who made his constituents in his kingdom, they were opulent, they were happy. And so I was like, wow, how could that be? But then we have to understand that, the 4 stages of, let's say, experience, like the first one is religion. So Hiranyakashipu and Ravana, they perform great sacrifices, So you're thinking, wow, they're worshiping the demigods, they're worshiping maybe Krishna also, to be able to gain their material things, but they've got the wrong purpose. They're not, it's not like the devotee who knows the supreme goal of life. He knows that all the wealth, all the beautiful women, all the handsome men, all the knowledge, all of that. Because one of the things they said is, yes, Ravana is so intelligent. That's why he had 10 heads, because he was so full of knowledge. But what kind of knowledge? Material knowledge, very temporary knowledge. So, Ravana ultimately had to meet his end because of his contaminated heart, and because he was never satisfied. It explains also in Bhagavad Gita that lust is never satisfied. It burns like fire. And the more, it's just like pouring gasoline on a fire. The more gasoline you pour on the fire, the greater it grows. So even though Ravana, he was also warned, that if you take this, the Sita, you're gonna meet your end. But he could not hear good advice. So that is also the case with demoniac mentality, that the demon is not able to hear good advice. So ourselves, how can we internalize that when, an older devotee, or, we're reading, or, we're faced with some kind of conflict in our lives, how to take that good advice, how to use that good advice to help us advance in Christian consciousness. We know the different stages of advancement, beginning with Shraddha. So everyone's here because they had a little bit of faith, and then sadhu sangha, associating with devotees, and taking, advanced devotees' advice. If one devotee gives you advice, you're not sure it's correct, you can always check in with other devotees, but we always want to keep that. We want to try to expel that demonic mentality that really, pervades the world. Like, you see our world, you see the advertising industry. There's nothing more influential probably than the advertising industry. They convince people to buy things that they don't really need, things that they don't really have to have, but they convince them that they're going to be happier if they get them. So we have to be convinced that reading scripture, by worshiping the brahmanas, by serving the deity, that's really what's going to bring us, real happiness. Unlike, Ravana and Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu, like Hiranyaksha, he was so full of himself, with his mace, and he argued, he was arguing with Varuna in the ocean that, he was gonna be the conqueror of the world, and Varuna, he started blaspheming Vishnu, and Varuna was like, oh, you're gonna end up, prostrate, and the dogs are just gonna finish you off, because, you can't make fences like that. So of course we have to be careful of that also, that we don't speak harshly, because that is one of the problems with the demonic mentality, that pride. We can have pride in being a devotee. That's fine. That's the best use of pride. But we shouldn't be proud, of our, material ability, or our, I give such a great class, or I'm such a great Sankirtan devotee. I know that in the past when, I did Sankirtan, and I'd start, really getting in a role, and I think, wow, this is great, and boom, Krishna would just immediately cut it off, and make me realize, when I'm doing well, it's because Krishna's working through me. It has nothing to do with me. It's being that conduit, so whatever our service might be, is something so important to remember, that we're an instrument. Like Krishna says that to Arjuna, nimitta matram, just become an instrument for Krishna. So that's the desire of a devotee. Hiranyaksha, ultimately he was defeated by Vishnu, and of course his brother Hiranyakashipu, he was furious because Vishnu killed his brother. So then he goes on a campaign to kill Vishnu. So that's explained in the purport that demons, they take birth again and again in the wombs of demons, just like in this place in India where they worship Ravana. The people that are born into those families, they are born with some enmity towards the Supreme Person of Godhead. And maybe some of us were also born in a family where there was some enmity, maybe an atheistic family. I mean, myself, I was born into a Catholic family, so there was that piety of believing in God, although I knew very little about God. And I always asked questions, but I never really got many answers, about God. So I was confused, and I did kind of turn away for a bit and thinking, I was God, and that impersonal philosophy. But it didn't take me that long to figure out that if I was God, I was doing a really bad job. That things were not going my way, and there must be another way. So, and then met devotees. But Hiranyakashipu, he was like a super demon. Although, his son Prahlad, his last wish, when he was given the opportunity to ask for something, he asked for liberation for his father. So that's the compassion, of a devotee, is that even someone who's tried to kill them or hurt them, and it's also the power of forgiveness. So that's something that's really essential for ourselves also, because, I remember when I first became a devotee in Detroit, and I went into the, I was just learning I wasn't really a devotee yet. I was just visiting the temple, but I had beads. So I went to the bathroom. When I came out, there was a woman devotee there, and she really gave it to me. You went in the bathroom with your beads? What a nonsense, You're in so much Maya, and she just went on. And I my pride, my hoods just went up. And I thought, wow, I don't have to listen to her. I don't have to be here. But I thought, but so what if she said that? I do want to be devotee. I do want to be here. I'm not going to like one person who kind of is nasty affect me. And of course, in my best consciousness, I would have thought, oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much for instructing me. I didn't realize, that it was offensive to go into the bathroom with my beads. I didn't know that. So, we try to accept any kind of instruction that we get in a humble way, having that humility, having that sweet speech to speak with the devotees and serve the devotees. So just, once also I was on Sankirtan, and it was the Miami airport, and they used to I was distributing to this one man, and while I was distributing and talking with him, this other man came up, very strange looking man. He was very pasty white, and he started like saying, don't buy any books from her. Don't get any books from her. She's this way, she's that way, and the man just kind of stood there. And then I remembered the night before I was reading Chaitanya Charitamrita, and in the CC, it said that sometimes snakes from the lower planets, that they take birth on the Earth planet just to impede the Sankirtan movement. So I remembered that, and I pointed at him, I said, I know who you are. You're a snake that's taken birth just to impede the Sankirtan movement. And I swear that when I said that, this man, he just kind of like shook a little bit and looked at me, and he just like bowed his head, and he kind of like slunk away, So there's so many different, let's say, challenges that we meet, in this material world, that we have to, deal with and transcend, and try to really learn from. of course, we have so many positive examples of devotees who were so tolerant and so determined. It's interesting that Chaitanya Charan, he wrote an article in Back to Godhead, and it was called Lust Becomes Dust. And it was specifically about Ravana, and saying how Ravana, thing is, demons, they think that they can go on forever, just like Putin. He thinks, that he can do whatever he wants. But already there's one Russian oligarch who put a price like $1 million for anyone who kills Putin or anybody who arrests him, because the people in Russia, they're feeling they're also being destroyed, right? And these people, these oligarchs who are, millionaire, billionaires, they're having all their assets frozen. There's so many sanctions being put upon them. So that's what happens when you offend, great souls, or when you're just unilaterally, destroying innocent people. You're bringing it down on your head. Like I was reading where in France, one Russian billionaire, he had a $6 million yacht that he had parked in France for repair. But when he heard about all these things being repossessed, he decided he was going to try to get away. So he jumped into his yacht and he started to sail away, but he was apprehended and they did, take away his yacht. So, Krishna, of course, Krishna also is known as someone who takes away. He may take things away from his devotee, but he does it so that we surrender to Krishna. But when offenses are made, automatically that just, it just takes so much away from devotees and non-devotees. So just how to cultivate our spiritual life, to have that, the same determination that a Wall Street banker may have, to work so hard, right? Like Prabhupada would say, like in India and America, they may travel so far just to get to their place of work, and then work all day at a job that's devoid of nectar, right? Just for money. And they may have so much money already, but it doesn't matter how much they have. They want more. They want to have more, and they want to have more. Whereas we have the examples of like Sudama Brahmana, who had so very little that his wife, he wasn't even dissatisfied, but his wife was like, oh, please go to Krishna and ask him, you're so thin, you're emaciated. We have nothing. Please go to Krishna. So because his wife wanted him to, and because he was a childhood friend of Krishna, he decided, okay, I'll go, I'll go to see Krishna. So when he goes to the palace, what happened is immediately Krishna lets him in, and he starts bathing his feet. Krishna starts bathing the lotus feet of the devotees, and Krishna's famous for that. Even in the great Rajasuya sacrifice, Krishna, his job was bathing the feet of all the devotees. So he stays there, and Sudama Brahmana, he's completely embarrassed that all this is happening. And his wife had given him that little bag of chipped rice, and he's embarrassed to give it to Krishna. Krishna's got this beautiful numerous palaces, all the wealth and opulence that anyone would ever want. But he knows that Sudama brought it. Says, Sudama, what did you bring me? And then it's nothing. And he's like, no, Sudama. He grabs it away, and he opens it up, and he takes the little bit of chipped rice, and he eats it, and he goes to take another handful, and Rukmini says, no. She says, you that's enough. He goes, that little bit of rice that you've taken, that's enough to satisfy the whole universe. So Pacham Pusham Phalam Tayam Yome Bhakta Prayashati. Krishna says, if you offer me with love and devotion a leaf, a flower, a fruit, a water, I'll accept that. So it's not a matter of us, giving so much opulence. If we have opulence, of course you give it. But Sudama's little offering of chipped rice could be worth so much more than someone who comes and proudly, gives their gives their donation. I remember it must have been 1975, I went to India, and Prabhupada was there. So the Sankirtan devotees, we flew there, and as soon as we got there, Abhiram said, we were very tired, but when we came in, he said, "Do you want to see Prabhupada?" We were like, "Yes, please." So he brought us up to Prabhupada's room, and we paid our obeisances. And my friend Nartaka Gopala, who'd be another great person for you to ask to give class. She has so many beautiful memories of Srila Prabhupada. So we paid our obeisances, and Nartaka was thinking, here we are in Prabhupada's room with Prabhupada and these other personalities, but does Prabhupada really want us here? So she said she looked up as she was thinking that, and Prabhupada was looking straight at her, and he was shaking his head like, "Yes, you're here. I want you here. I'm glad you're here." So we sat through the darshan, and people were coming and giving donations, and Prabhupada would just immediately take the donation, take his keys out, open up the drawer, put the donation in, and close it, And other people, like myself, at another time, we had gone to New York before we flew off to India. So I heard that Prabhupada liked macadamia nuts. But I knew they had to be uncooked because you couldn't offer things that were cooked by non-devotees. So I went to all these health food stores in New York, and all the macadamia nuts were cooked. So I couldn't bring them. And then I went to the temple cook, and I said, "I'm going to see Prabhupada, and I really want to be able to offer him macadamia nuts." And he said, "Oh no, I can't. I don't have enough." So I got down on my knees. I paid my best. I said, "Please, even just a few that I could bring to Prabhupada." So he finally gave me some. So I had the opportunity in a darshan, as Prabhupada was walking by me, I gave him the macadamia nuts. And he said, "What are these?" And so he had to ask me 3 times because he couldn't understand what I was saying. But I said, macadamia nuts, Prabhupada. He said, "Oh, acha, thank you very much." He was so kind, and he was so grateful for any little service, any little donation, always fanning the spark. Also in New York, when Prabhupada was giving a lecture, you probably heard that a bum came in, and he just put a roll of toilet paper on Prabhupada's desk. And then he just walked out again. And Prabhupada said, because of this, he's begun a spiritual life. So, and Jayananda is another personality. There's the demons and the devotees. Jayananda was so great at encouraging people to give donations. When we'd go to the market in New York, that he would get so much fruit and so many vegetables that people would donate, that when he passed away and the devotees went to the market, they were like, "Well, they used to call him Johnny, maybe they call him Johnny Ananda. I think it was Johnny Ananda. Where is he?" And they said, "Oh, he passed away." They were so sad that many of them cried. When they went to get the permit for the Rath Yatra, the woman said, Where is he? Where is he? Passed away. She started to cry. So, just we get our sentience, we get our feelings from Krishna. When I was reading about Hiranyaksha, it said that Hiranyaksha, he was calling Lord Vishnu, Lord Varaha, calling him names. And it said that these shaft-like words, they hurt the heart of Varaha, Lord Varaha, but he just bore it. So he just bore the pain. So it may be that, in so many instances, we have to bear the pain, especially when you're out in the world. You may be doing Sankirtan and people can be insulting, but we just bear the pain because we're trying to help these people, we're trying to lift them, just as Prabhupada has lifted us out of the material world, just as Lord Chaitanya's mercy has come down upon us and is continuing to envelop us in so much love. The Hare Krishna mantra is able to transform our hearts to completely rid us of any anger lust, greed, of any illusion, of any madness, any moha, all of that. So we're, we're fortunate to have this, and we need to protect it, protect our heart, because that's really where it starts with the demons, is that they, in their heart, they have the desire to own and the desire to control. So as long as we have those desires for, for pride and arrogance and controlling, and it can come about so easily. Those weeds can so easily grow in the garden. We have to try to be aware of it and try to cut it, before it takes over, because we've seen that happen to devotees. So devotees like Jayananda, once the devotees went to visit him in the hospital when he was very, very sick from leukemia, and Jayananda was lying on the floor in the hospital on a blanket. I'm like, Jayananda, why are you lying on the floor? So he said, well, I've really nothing to offer Srila Prabhupada here except for my bed. So he had a picture of Srila Prabhupada on his bed, and he's offering that to Srila Prabhupada. So such humility, such humility and love is so outstanding, that these are jewels, that we can always remember, in our heart, or just, the transformation of Jaghai and Madhai because of the mercy of Lord Nityananda. So demonic, even though they came from this Brahminical background in me originally. And Prabhupada was very critical. I saw one conversation where Prabhupada was talking with some journalists, and the journalist was referring to the Brahmanas and how they were born as Brahmanas. Prabhupada said, no, it's not by birth. He said, it's not by birth. He goes, no, it's by qualification, because we see so many Brahmanas who are not, they're not pious, and they're not humble. They don't have those qualifications of good behavior and truthfulness and all of that. Many of them are, they're working for masters who are demons. So they're having to compromise. But Prabhupada, he actually created these societies so we could try to, work together and create. Ultimately, he really wanted there to be farm communities where we would be ready to receive hordes of people, who needed shelter. And we can see how that could happen. We can see how easily that can happen. In Ukraine, the devotees and the people are saying, just like a week ago, they were sitting with their families and everything was fine. This never really happened in the United States. And we certainly hope that never will happen. But we don't really know what the future is, because Srila Prabhupada did say there's a lot coming. So we know it's Kali Yuga, and we know that things don't really get better. We do know that we're in the golden age of Kali Yuga for 10,000 years, and we're only into it 500 some years. So we have to really make use of that time to preach, to give out books, to give out prasadam, to give people the chance, to connect with their higher nature. There's the higher nature and the lower nature. The demons are all connecting with these lower temporary natures, but so many of them, when they get a book, they have that opportunity to change. Did you ever hear the story of the woman on the bus in Spain who was distributing books? Did any of you ever hear that story? Yes? No? Okay.
No.
It's a great story. Okay, it's a great story. It goes, she was on the bus, she was distributing, because that's how they do it in Spain. She was giving out Bhagavad Gita. So she went to one man, and he took the Bhagavad Gita from her, he tore it in half, he stomped on it, and he pushed her off the bus. So when he got home, she took the Bhagavad Gita, he took the Bhagavad Gita and threw it in the garbage. But when the maid went to throw out the garbage, she saw the book there, and she said, oh, this is a very good book. It must have accidentally been ruined. So she repaired it. She put a binding on it, she taped it together, and she put it on the bookshelf. So this unfortunate man, he went on with his life. and he put the book on the bookshelf. But in the meantime, his wife had died of cancer, and now he has cancer. He's miserable. He looks up, he sees the book, he takes it down, because Prabhupada said, when people have these books are like deities, and they will act. So he took the book down, he started reading it, and he was like, oh my God, what have I done? He's filled with remorse, he's filled with lamentation. So he goes to a temple and he learns more about Krishna consciousness, and then he just wants to find the woman that he pushed off the bus. And he does find her, and he apologizes to her, and he becomes an initiated devotee. So we can never give up on people. We can never give up on people. We can never give up on ourselves. Devotees go through dark nights of the soul where they, have misgivings and feeling frustrated about their own advancement, or seeing, devotees who were advanced maybe also having trouble. But we can never give up on ourselves, and we can never give up on others. Anyway, we're almost coming to the end here, so I want to open it up for any reflections, anything that you heard that you maybe appreciated, or maybe any personal experience that you have had that you'd like to share, any corrections, any additions. So
Thank you, Sukhada. It was beautiful. Andrea, go ahead.
Kaiba, Andrea.
Hare Krishna, my dear Sukhada Prabhu. Please
So
accept
great
my
to see
humble obeisances. I'm so happy that you're here. Love you so much. And when
We live
I
so
raised,
close, but we never see each other
I
because of
know,
COVID, right?
I know. Soon, I'm sure we'll be able to.
Okay, good.
But what I wanted to share was that, right? I had my hand raised before, and I wanted to ask you
didn't
for
know
a story of a demoniac person who, through the association of the devotees, changed, and then you answered without hearing my question by telling that
really?
story of the
Oh
man.
my.
Literally, I was literally anybody else that saw my hand raised, that's what I told Paul, I was like, oh, I want to ask her for a story of someone who was very demoniac, and then you told the story. So
That's
thank
so
you so
funny.
much.
Yeah,
You're so inspiring, and I love you very much.
There's so many stories of
many.
demons. Yeah.
Oh,
who become
well, I don't
devotees.
want to take up too much, but thank you so much for telling that story, and thank you for everything. And I hope that you come again. I'm so pleased to see you here. Haribol.
Thank you so much, Haribol. Anybody else have anything they'd like to share?
Shikshashtakam Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
I'm so glad to hear you. I obviously, your name means making people happy. So obviously you're doing that.
Don't forget the dasi part at the end.
Dasi, yeah, of course. Yeah. Is that a name for Krishna?
No, but I'm saying Sukhada Dasi, I'm the servant of one who delivers happiness.
Oh, yeah,
right?
Of course. That was Lord Chaitanya's mission, to make everybody happy.
It's true.
So you're mentioning how demonic people, they want to possess everything. And I was just thinking, this is the result of the bodily conception of life. Because, like you were saying about Ravana, he had unlimited greed. And so similarly, Putin, he thinks that he's the body. He thinks that the so-called USSR, or way that used to be, is his, the whole country. And he wants to bring it back to even before the Soviet Union, like a Leninistic type of thing that it used to be. He wants to restore the glory of the old Soviet Union. And it's completely delusional conception of how to make it right. But it's all based on the bodily concept of life. And therefore, we have to talk about the peace formula, as Prabhupada said at Bhagavad Gita 529.
Can you say that verse? I love that verse. Can you repeat that verse?
It's Bhaktaram Yagatapasam Savardo Lokamaheshram Suridam Sarabhutanam Amam Shantamishiti. The Supreme Lord is the proprietor of everything. He's the owner of everything. and he's the enjoyer and the friend of everyone. So
That's
we all
right.
think that we're the proprietor because we're partly demons ourselves. We have to uproot that mentality, and we think we're the enjoyer of our families or our bodies or our house or whatever. And we think that we're the best friend of every living entity, but Krishna's in everyone's heart. How can we be the friend of everyone? So we're not the enjoyer or the controller or the proprietor. We're the servant of the servant of the servant of nice devotees like you. And so then therefore we'll be able to understand Krishna, because that's the only way to approach Krishna. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Yeah, and generally servant is considered to be a very lowly, things are, they're like topsy-turvy, right? Material world, spiritual world. So in the material world, to be a servant is considered, not very, very high. It's a low position, but in spiritually, to be a servant is considered the greatest benediction, really. To be a servant of the Supreme Person of Godhead. What could be better than that? So we're automatically brought from nothing to be everything when we become devotees. So being grateful.
Yeah, it's like I heard my spiritual master said it's better to be the servant than the king of hell. And so that's, they're saying that from royalty to dust. That's what's happening to Putin right now. He's destroying his own country, and he's never going to be successful. He's turned, one person put it very succinctly, because he's attacking this small democracy, he's turning this particular incident, Ukraine, into the George Floyd of the world. In other words, that's
great. Yeah.
Yeah, that's unbelievable how he could rally the whole world against him. And now he's finished. It's just dust now.
I hope so. I mean, it's not over.
Yeah, I mean, it might turn very, it's very dangerous right now. This is like a dangerous time, but we don't care, because Krishna's just, Prabhupada said, if the bombs start falling, he said, what do we do? And Prabhupada said, just chant Hare Krishna.
Yeah.
Or
Although
Krishna will lift a big hill.
We do feel for the people that are going through this. You can imagine, that you have your home and everything you own, and then all of a sudden you're just trying to get away and go into another country as a refugee. That is a tough situation. So
they may never come back.
Exactly. There's nothing to come back to at this point, and that's very, very, it's very difficult. So yeah, I mean, Prabhupada says that demons, they just like he imprisoned his own father. They don't mind killing their own relatives, putting their own relatives in prison or killing them. We've heard about that in the Middle East too, how that's done routinely, where in Vedic culture, your parents, your relatives, your elders, there's utmost respect for them. So this is just so crazy and so wrong. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sukhada. Would anyone else like to share anything?
Looks like there's someone.
Adibhusha Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Akashvani.
Please, just a second. 1 second. Now, you can hear me okay?
I can.
Yeah.
We have to remember that Kalanemi and Kamsa, that they're actually devotees, and they're doing a good job being demon. If you have a play and there's a bad guy, and then Krishna, who's so wonderful, comes and defeats that person, and you're talking about Hiranyaksha berating
Vishnu.
Varuna,
Lord
right?
Ravana.
And
Yeah.
he was, and I want to fight with you, because the demons, they just want to use, they're supposed to show that they want to use. Banasura was beating the mountains. He couldn't find anybody to fight with him. So Hiranyaksha was saying, I want to fight, I want to fight with you. And Varuna said, I'm just an old man. You want to fight with Vishnu. So then there's that funny thing where he tells him, I tell you what, you see this big rock here, and there's this gigantic boulder, like a mountain. If you can pick this rock up. So what is it? Hiranyaksha goes, and he moves the rock about this much. I moved it, I got it, I lifted it, and he goes, you know what that rock is? It's Vishnu's earring. right? Heard that before. So anyway, Krishna is so wonderful that he minimizes even the most powerful looking demon. And it's like a role in a play. And without a bad guy, that's one of the things of the Vedas talks about the perfect drama. There has to be a bad guy. He has to be dirty deeds done dirt cheap. It has to be really villainous.
What about
And then
Putin?
Krishna
You think he
defeats him. We can't hear you.
I said, do you think Putin
What?
is some great personality?
Do I think what?
Do you think that Putin is some great personality with a
There has to
backstory?
be a substantial demon in order to show the glory of Krishna, right?
Okay.
So
Yeah.
that's an interesting thing to consider.
Yeah.
So these devotees acting as demons, don't forget this was the gatekeepers of the spiritual world that were cursed. They said you can become a demon for 3 births or a devotee for 10 births or something like that. We'll be demons. And they did a really good job acting like,
That's true.
nasty, powerful,
That's true.
person. And then they glorified the Lord by fighting with him, pleasing Krishna, because Krishna likes to fight. And then we see how wonderful is Krishna. But, it doesn't matter how great they seem. Krishna can beat them with just a little, pop, you're gone.
Right.
Where's the Prabhupada, Hare Krishna?
Shy.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Extraordinary. Thank you so much. Please offer obeisances to your husband. We haven't
Okay, I
seen him in a
will.
while. We hope he'll give class soon. Hare Krishna.
Okay. I'm sure he'll be happy to. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Okay, we can take one more reflection or question. Anyone? Yeah, I remember when Sukhada was describing how she was chastised by this devotee for going with her beads into the bathroom. I was remembering how I was in the ashram. I was just visiting the temple at the time, and they said, "Okay, you should wear a dhoti now. You should wear a dhoti. You should become a real devotee." And I was in this little room with all the other guys getting dressed for the Sunday program in Kiev. By the way, that was in Kiev. That's where I joined. And so
Where was it? Oh, Barranquilla.
Capital
Oh,
of
yo
Ukraine, yeah.
hablo un poco español.
Yeah. So, I pulled my pants down, and I was standing in my underwear and a t-shirt, and everybody started laughing at me and they said, "You're not a pole dancer. Come on." And then they showed me how to do it properly but it was a big laugh about that. So devotees lovingly corrected me. And this is my takeaway from this whole thing. Devotees are our everything. That's all I can say. This is the most valuable thing that we've been given, the Devotees Association. That brings everything. That brings Krishna. So thank you very much, Sukhada.
Okay,
Yeah, not a pole dancer. Okay. All right. Hare Krishna, everybody. Have a wonderful day. Thank you so much for being in this class, reflecting, asking questions, smiling, keeping your cameras on. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Hare
Hare Krishna, thank you.